Okay. Sometimes the sheets don't cut, sometimes they do. We will look at the concept of views and AutoCAD Sheet Manager for that eventually, but the concept with the design must continue, and that is then the idea of sample lines. So we're going to go ahead and create some sample lines. Those are created way down back in the overall view, more or less, going up and down the road. And typically, they're going to very often mimic what you've done. So sample lines is basically how you do much of your computation, though you will know here already, if you go to Analyze and go to Volumes, you probably already have some ability to do some volume work already. If you go over here, you can see the volumes. You can add a surface pair. The first base surface, of course, would most likely be the Tyler Civil, and your comparison surface most likely would be the proposed datum. And you see right away you have a whole bunch of fill, which is in fact what you know. And that's what you know from your estimating class, probably done on a grid method. So, however we generally do our work in highways, we're going to go ahead and set this back to 40. Why it resets each time, I do not know. That's not necessarily good, and we're going to see later on as we lay some things out, we're going to be going up this road in this direction based on the view frames that were set. However, what we need to do is go back to Home and create some sample lines. Select an alignment as usual. I'm going to make sure that you don't want to sample all of them. You probably only want Tyler Civil and top. We don't need those two. You just need the December 4th proposed and datum. You want to set your displays. You want the Tyler Civil to be, I would expect, existing ground. You would like the proposed top to be final top, and you would like the proposed datum to be final datum. And you see those are setting up with the DOT styles for computations. Once you hit that, you hit OK. Then you can go to these choices as to how you're going to do it. Typically by range of stations. Whether you're doing the beginning and end and you're going every 50 or perhaps every 25 more along the curves, you hit OK here and you see it actually goes through and makes a set of samples there. They went pretty wide there. Now those in fact are there so that you can then go ahead and make some section views. We generally will make the section views down someplace along near 0, 0, perhaps minus 2,000 in the Y. Minus 2,000 in the X would be reasonable. You can go ahead and create multiple views of sections. That is a sample line group. We'll see whether it goes anywhere. It's looking over here. That was your group. You want to make sure that you get the right group. Offset range, minus 150 to plus 150 user specified. You might not want to go that far. Maybe you'll go minus 75. A lot of this is to do with your sheets, minus 75 to 75. Same general bit here. Varies. You can do it automatically. You're going to more or less labels, existing ground, whether or not you want labels on any of these. It's probably a good idea on the top to add standard labels. And you're going to go ahead and create the section views. Identify section view origin. Like I said, put it someplace minus 2,000, comma, minus 2,000, or someplace out of the way. You now are set. You can go down, zoom, center, minus 2,000, comma, minus 2,000, 100. And you have then set up a set of section views that are pretty well labeled. Not too bad. The labels, once again, you have to realize that when you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing a different scale. And so that sheet should have been set prior to doing it. So, however, it does lay out your computations. It shows you both the datum surface and the top surface. You see that beyond one point here, they generally tend to match. So the sheets, once again, will be done by the DOT and managed, but you've kind of got something that's a relative standard scale here. You can kind of 1 to 20. You can look at 1 to 10 what it looks like, and they will redo them as well, because that really doesn't make much of a difference. So, but you can then read a little bit better. There are too many labels, but for the most part, you're looking at the 1 to 1 here, 100%, and station offset labels. So you've got a fair bit there. That's how one goes about doing section views. These are each tied to sample lines, and so that makes up pretty much the bulk of the sheet that you've got to do. Last bit that is possible, and we'll try it even though we might not manage it, would be then to go to Home, Annotate, Modify, Analyze, Compute Materials for the sample line group. In other words, the existing surface will be civil, the final datum will be datum. Hit a button here. A lot of this have not been mapped, and so when you get a volume report there, you can actually go ahead and put it someplace. It's going to be off here on the right, and it will generate a volume report that looks something like that. You can bring a volume table within, and once again you're checking that your fill, right? Notice we didn't have any cut there, so that all looks reasonable. So the concept of the datum surface is there. You can save that or print it as it needs be, but you can also bring in a total volume table, stick it down here, and you've got a volume table right in your sheet. So all that is then dynamically linked when you go back and do some changes. So I'm going to take this advantage of saying File, Save here, and go back again. You don't really want to get too much involved with the changing your horizontal. So we're going to look around back to our vertical and look at some of these links, so you realize you've got a whole lot of volume. So if we look now back to our vertical, if you remember the fact that we had set this thing up so we could do some pulling, and perhaps some pulling here, though we don't want to pull that too far, right? If you do that, you're pulling it off. If you notice there, you're pulling it off the road. So we'll go ahead and pull this one down as well. And as we do that, we should go over here and start to look at our corridors wanting to be recalculated. So rebuild all that one. It should not have to change the superhighway. And rebuild this one. Which means if we go all the way down to all of these documents, this will all have changed as well. If it has not, then there's a bit of an issue. So regen is always a good idea. So the numbers here will have changed as well. Your cross sections will have changed as well. So everything being dynamically linked. All right, that'll be the end of it. Except for the layout of sheets, which comes down to views. And not trusting, no matter what someone says about Sheet Cutter, you can never tend to trust them. So you're going to be wanting to set up views for each of these and plot them out. We will not be doing that this semester. We will be concentrating on the Sheet Cutter commonality between Revit and Sheet Style Manager and Civil 3D as well. If we can get the DOT to work, we will, but we will not fret it. Well, we will get at least one sheet out so you can see that it generally does work. Thanks for listening.